Hi, Tim.
Hello, Mendo. How are you?
Hi, Gabo. I'm not.
Cheers. Having a good day. Is the Wi-Fi okay? Are we okay?
I think so now, but recently it was a little down, but no, it's okay.
So how many
How are
people are
you?
joining us for a mate?
Uh, for now, 64, but we can wait a little
Okay.
more.
Okay.
I'm
Cheers,
here
everyone.
with my friend here, little koala.
Ah, they're
Do you
they're
remember this?
I do. They're drop bears. They're not koalas. They're drop bears.
The drop bears. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, let me tell the guys are joining us something. Hola a todos. Bueno, bienvenidos al vivo con Tim Gabbett de Kiné. Eh, Estoy un poco nervioso porque es el primer vivo del cual soy el entrevistador y encima es en otro idioma, entonces estoy un poco nervioso, así que sepan disculpar desde ya cualquier problema con el lenguaje, pero bueno, vamos a intentar que sea lo más fluido posible. Yo les voy a ir traduciendo un poco todo lo que Tim va diciendo. Gabo, I was just telling people that are joining us that I will be translating a little bit. So uh, maybe I ask a question and then translate to them. And when you answer that question, I will translate again. Okay?
Yeah. 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 Sure. Well,
Perfect.
my Spanish is really good anyway, so I'll just keep up. It'll be okay.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Whatever you want. So first of all, Tim, I want to thank you for being here. I know lots of people want to have you in their Instagram lives, but the fact that you said yes to us means a lot to us. So thank you again.
My pleasure, Mendo. It's when you reached out, there was no contest. It was absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. Bueno, le agradecía recién a Tim que haya dicho que sí a nuestra propuesta para estar acá con nosotros. Eh, so the idea of this live is not for you to talk about the acute chronic workload ratio itself, but just to get to know you a little better and know your expertise in the high performance sport. So, lo
Hmm.
que le digo es que la idea no es que hablemos del ratio agudo crónico únicamente, sino que lo conozcamos un poco más y que sepamos un poco de su experiencia en el deporte de alto rendimiento. So, Tim, why don't we start by you telling us what do you do for a living? I can
Yeah.
imagine that you don't lie in your bed thinking about acute chronic ratio all day long.
No, that's exactly what I don't do. In fact, day to day, the amount of time I spend thinking about that is actually minuscule. There's just so much more that goes into performance, as you know, than one variable. I can understand why people might associate me with that because it's a popular variable, or it's a popular graph. So, but I was around a long time before I dreamt that one up, and I'll be around a long time after. So, but what I do day to day is I work with athletes and coaches, and basically what I'm trying to do is just listen to the challenges that they have, and just try and find a practical solution to it. Now, some of that might be training load related, but not all of it's training load related. Some of it could be, how do we get someone
Let me
transferring their skill?
translate a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah. Go
okay?
ahead. Sorry. Yep.
Bueno, lo que yo le
No, no.
decía era qué hace de su vida, ¿no? O sea, que me imagino que no estará todo el día pensando en el ratio agudo crónico. Y él me contesta que sí, que obviamente entiende por qué la gente lo relaciona con el reito agudo crónico únicamente, pero que la realidad de su trabajo es trabajar con deportistas de alto rendimiento y intentar darle soluciones a sus problemáticas de rendimiento, ya sea en relación a lo que es el entrenamiento con el manejo de la carga o en relación a lo que es el entrenamiento con otras variables, no solamente una variable como es el manejo de la carga. Go ahead.
Yeah, so some of it could be just related to skill acquisition. How do we transfer what we're doing in a training environment from a skill perspective? How do we get that holding up under pressure and fatigue of competition? So it varies from athlete to athlete. It varies from coach to coach. But I tend to work really simply with my coaches and just try and identify what is the challenge you're faced with at the moment, and is there a practical solution to it?
Perfect. Bueno, nos cuenta un poco, quizás se explaye un poco más en cuáles son las diferentes variables en las que puede llegar a trabajar en relación con el entrenador, pero básicamente lo que hace es ser un nexo entre lo que es el entrenador y los atletas, buscar cuál es el problema que no los está dejando llegar al mayor rendimiento y bueno, en base a eso buscar soluciones prácticas que pueden ser adquisición de habilidades o pueden estar relacionadas con fortalecimiento y demás. Okay, Tim. I know you work with lots of sports organizations around the world. I know you've been in Barça and other institutes, but which in your opinion is the best sports organization that they manage load? I mean, if I wanted to go and do an internship in load monitoring in sports, where should I go? I don't know if you understand the question. Le pregunto,
yeah.
sé que él ha trabajado en muchos clubes, en muchas organizaciones deportivas, y mi pregunta va dirigida a ver cuál de ellos, cuál de ellos es el lugar, la organización que mejor hace el tema del manejo de cargas. I don't know if there is one that you say this is the one. If there is not,
Yeah,
there's
no,
not.
look, I don't know. There's so many teams doing good stuff, and in terms of monitoring load, probably the ones that I would go to are the ones who are not just monitoring load; they're actually doing something about it. So they're actually training, and this is the part that I think most people. Well, not most people, but a lot of people forget that just because you monitor load doesn't mean you've got a good program. You could be monitoring no training at all. So you're still monitoring it, but there's nothing going on. So the ones that do it well are the ones that also train and do something about the load that they see. If I had to pick one team, look, I couldn't pick one team. There's teams in the States that I've worked with that are really good.
There are some people here that says that the team where Tondo works maybe the one that's best in the world.
Yeah, and I see Pablo has put up the Queensland Reds, so
yeah.
he loves his rugby.
Lo que él responde es que en realidad dice que no puede elegir una, porque hay varias que lo hacen bien, pero la que mejor maneja la carga es la que en realidad entrena y la que en realidad sabe cuánto entrena y cómo entrena. No es que hay una que supere el resto. So you get into an issue that I want you to explain a little more, because sometimes physios like us works in a interdisciplinary team. And when we say we monitor load, some coaches, some strength and conditioning trainers, and some evil people at Twitter may think that we do this just to avoid players training hard. So obviously this is not the case, but I want you to tell us all of us, what's the real point of load monitoring? Lo que le pregunto es que muchas veces nosotros como fisioterapeutas, integrando equipos multidisciplinarios, decimos que manejamos la carga, imponemos cómo hacerlo y demás, y muchas veces eso se puede llegar a tomar por la gente que no sabe a qué se refiere este manejo de la carga, como que nosotros lo que estamos haciendo es cuidando al deportista y haciendo que no entrene tanto. Entonces le pregunto que nos introduzca un poco más en ese tema.
Yeah, well, look, there's a whole heap of different answers I can give you here. You can monitor load to make sure that you're maximising the positive and minimising the negative response to training. But you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said you work in a multidisciplinary team. Now, if it's a truly multidisciplinary team, then at some point in time, your athletes are going to go from rehab back into reconditioning and then back into peak performance. Now, if it's multidisciplinary, then you probably won't be handling all of those things. At some point in time, you're going to hand them over, or the emphasis of the strength and conditioning coach is going to increase, and the emphasis of the coach is going to increase. So loading or load monitoring there is essentially, am I doing enough training in rehab to prepare me for what I'm about to go back and do?
Sorry,
so that
one
to
second.
me is a really key point. Yeah.
Okay. Él lo que dice es que trabajando obviamente en un equipo multidisciplinario, cada uno cumple su rol. Entonces, si la persona está en rehabilitación, después va a pasar a un entrenamiento, después va a pasar al entrenamiento con el equipo y demás, y que no significa obviamente que va a entrenar menos, sino que tiene que entrenar lo suficiente, ya sea en algunos casos más, en otros casos menos, lo suficiente para poder competir a ese nivel. So, continue.
Yeah, so, essentially you want to know that you've done enough loading to send them over to the strength and conditioning coach, and that they can handle what the strength and conditioning coach is going to throw at them. I still see a lot around the world that I think coaches believe that sports medicine staff, be it physical therapists, athletic trainers, whatever, have made up this term load monitoring or load management to pull athletes out of training, to stop them from doing stuff. That's the furthest thing away from my mind. Essentially, load monitoring is, for me, load management is, can we actually get our athletes doing more? And that's, if I had one message that I've been trying to push for the last 10 years is, we can do more. Our athletes are more resilient than we give them credit for. And we have to have faith in our programs that we can develop a robust athlete. They can handle more, both in rehab and at peak performance.
Perfect. Bueno, lo que nos dice entonces es que básicamente el objetivo final de la monitorización de la carga es asegurarnos que el deportista se pueda bancar lo que el entrenador le vaya a dar, ¿sí? O sea, básicamente es eso. Lo que él dice también es que nuestro objetivo final, como este equipo multidisciplinario, es que podamos hacer que los atletas con los que nosotros trabajamos hagan más. No es que hagan menos, sino que la idea es que puedan hacer cada vez más. Y lo que él dice es que siempre pueden hacer más, que lo que hay que hacer es aumentar su resistencia a la fatiga, al entrenamiento y demás, como para poder construir un entrenamiento mayor. So, I'm going to ask you this, maybe a little awkward, you know it's coming, but some people on Twitter, we have some questions of the audience that mentioned this Italian guy, Franco Impellizzeri. He says that the acute chronic workload ratio and all of this monitoring, load monitoring, it's like nonsense or just inaccurate. So I want to know your opinion about this. Lo que le cuento a algunos de ustedes, quizá los que más siguen este tema, han escuchado a Franco Impellizzeri, que es no sé qué es, que no sé si es médico o deportólogo o qué, a ver si alguno sabe que lo ponga ahí, que dice como que no es exacto, obviamente no es exacto, pero como que no está bien el reto agudo crónico. Entonces, bueno, le pregunto su opinión al respecto.
Well, firstly, I think there's a couple of answers to it. So maybe we break it down into a couple of couple of smaller points. So the first point is science is science. It just keeps rolling on, right? So if we think that training monitoring is going to end with the acute chronic workload ratio, begins and ends there, then we're wrong. Things will keep evolving. Things will keep improving. That's the first part. The second part is, as I can see it, I think there is some publications, and there's a recent one in Sports Med that kind of identified statistical limitations with the acute chronic workload ratio. So there's a statistical debate that's going on, but there's also, I've kind of come at it from a practical point of, can we load relative to our capacity to handle load? Now, in terms of solving the statistical side of it, I'm not going to solve that, and it's not up to me to solve every training load question. Like, if there's people out there with specific skills in an area, then we want them involved in it. We want them to try and solve that problem. I guess the challenge for all of us is whether we believe. Now, I don't know whether you want to translate so far what I've done, and whether
I'm
whether you just look at it.
I'm writing
Can you keep it
all this
up?
down. Yeah.
Okay. And the last point is whether we believe in progressive overload as a principle of training. And if you don't believe in progressive overload as a principle of training, then you're not going to believe in the acute chronic workload ratio. You're not going to believe that it's important to load relative to your capacity. But if you do believe in progressive overload as a principle, that you need to load relative to your capacity to handle load, then you've got to come up with, well, what is the principle that you use? How do you decide what load to put on an athlete? How do you decide what's enough, what's too much? What are your principles when it comes to training? Now, if you believe in the 10% rule, you believe in the 10% rule. If you believe in the acute chronic ratio and it works for you, then that's great. Then use it. If you don't, then that's fine as well. Or if you believe that you can just throw load at an athlete and it doesn't matter what their capacity is to handle load, you just throw it at them, then that's a different approach. But if you can rationalize it and justify it in your head, it's a little harder to justify that. But if you believe that, then go ahead and do it. Ultimately, you're responsible for your athletes and your patients, and you're responsible for giving them the best care that you can give them. So you just got to be, if you can work your way through it scientifically or rationally or logically, and you can get to an answer that you're comfortable with and that your athlete or your patient is comfortable with, then that's what you do. Evidence-based practice is not just about research. It's about, yourself, you've got clinical experience, and you also know that you've got your athlete or your patient comes in and has expectations. They know, they have an expectation of what they want you to do for them. So you tie all of these things together. You take the research, you take your clinical experience, and you take the athlete expectations, and you pull it together to provide the best evidence-based care that you can provide for that person.
Perfect. Bueno, le voy a tratar de resumir un poco todo lo que dijo. Obviamente, el que sabe inglés y entiende inglés, esta es una entrevista mucho más fructífera, pero voy a intentar, fui escribiendo un poco las cosas que iba diciendo. Básicamente, lo que él marca es que el manejo de la carga no es únicamente el reto agudo crónico. Y que el que dice que el manejo de la carga es el reto agudo crónico únicamente, obviamente que está equivocado, ¿sí? Hay un debate estadístico, sí, sobre algunos de los trabajos que él presentó y sobre los que se basa el ratio agudo crónico, pero dice que hasta que ese debate estadístico no se solucione, eso sigue estando en pie. Y no es él el que tiene que solucionar ese debate estadístico. Entonces, dice, eh, básicamente, lo que uno de los principios de entrenamiento es la sobrecarga progresiva. Es cargar relativo a la capacidad que tiene esa persona para soportar esa carga. Bien, entonces, si uno sigue ese principio, obviamente que las cosas van bien. Si vos pensás que la regla del 10% es lo que va y lo que vos deberías hacer, perfecto, seguí la regla del 10%. Si vos pensás que es probar, prueba y error y tirarle carga al atleta, bueno, perfecto, esa será tu forma de trabajar. Por último, cierra diciendo que la práctica basada en la evidencia o sí, las intervenciones basadas en la evidencia obviamente no son solo la evidencia, esto ya lo hemos visto siempre. Entonces, como que uno tiene que utilizar esa evidencia en función de otras variables como son la experiencia de cada uno y la persona del atleta que tiene adelante. So I think this is a good time for you to tell us the story of how you come up with the acute chronic ratio and when you told your father that you came to a conclusion. I don't know if you're up to do it.
Yeah. Look, I learned. I really believe I learned more about training from my father than I did from any textbook that I picked up. And I'm not just. He knew a lot about building chronic load or building fitness. There's no easy way to get fit. You just have to train. And he also knew intuitively that when you unload before a race, that you kind of minimise that fatigue effect. But he also knew, and this is one of the best skills I got from him, is to work out how to work out what makes an athlete tick. You know, that what works for some athletes won't work for others, and you can't just coach a number. You can't just throw the exact same program at every person and expect them to adapt the same way. He understood the principle of individualization. So I learned a lot from him, and I remember telling him about this acute and chronic load stuff, and he said, "Oh, so let me get this straight. If you train for a long period of time, your chronic load will be high, and you should be fit. But if you unload someone and you decrease the acute load, they'll go into the race and they'll be fresh and ready to perform." And I said, yeah, that's it. And he said, "Well, that's common sense, isn't it?" And I said, yeah, but like in sport, sometimes common sense isn't that common. The standard sort of response. And he said, "Well, great. I'll tell people Tim's talking about shit that we already know."
Bueno,
Nothing like your dad to bring you back to earth.
Le pido que cuente. Yo una vez, cuando la primera vez que estuvo acá, le digo, bueno, ¿cómo arrancaste con esto? ¿Cómo fue que comenzaste con el ratio agudo crónico y demás? Y entonces, él lo que cuenta es que aprendió más de su padre, que trabajó en deporte, en rugby durante mucho tiempo, y él estaba siempre con él, que de cualquier investigación que haya hecho, ¿no? O sea, el principio básico es que no hay, no hay un secreto en cómo llegar a tener resultados con los entrenamientos, solo tenés que entrenar. O sea, si no entrenás, no vas a mejorar el rendimiento. Entonces él lo que dice es que va al padre y le cuenta todo esto que está investigando y entonces le dice, ok, o sea que vos me estás diciendo que la carga, o sea, si yo voy cargando al atleta y se va entrenando, va aumentando la carga crónica y si yo lo descargo, la carga aguda baja, entonces mejora el rendimiento. Sí. Entonces le dice, sí, sí. Dice, bueno, pero es sentido común. Dice, bueno, sí, pero entonces dice, bueno, ahora yo a partir de ahora les voy a decir a todo el mundo que Tim descubrió algo que ya sabemos hace un montón de años. Entonces dice, nada como tu padre para volverte a la realidad. So, so that's a funny story. So,
Oh, look, there's a
Uh,
million like that from him. Yeah, he's pretty good at just bringing you back to earth.
yeah. So, uh, getting into the practical session of the practicity of load monitoring. So nowadays we use session RPE, and some sports also use GPS units to monitor load.
Hmm.
What do you think is the best way to do it? Le pregunto, le digo, nosotros en general usamos el esfuerzo percibido de cada sesión, que es la cantidad de minutos por el RPE, que es una escala de Bohr modificada. Y hay algunos deportes que además utilizan el GPS. Le pregunto cuál es la mejor forma de monitorizar la carga.
Yeah, I mean, ideally you will have some measure of external load and an internal load to go with that. So if you're a runner, then you can measure GPS, and maybe you've got heart rate as well. So you've got external load and internal load. Now that'll tell you about something at that point in time while you're doing the session. But I don't necessarily think that alone is going to help you when it comes to rehabbing an athlete. For example, if we have a tendon injury, when you're actually performing the exercise, you might be feeling really good. It's not until the 2 days after, 48 hours post, that if the tendon's going to react, that's when you start to have problems. So the heart rate response to the external load is not going to be particularly helpful 2 days later, and that's where we need another measure of response. And we could use subjective scales there. It could be something as simply as pain or soreness in the 24 to 48 hours post. Whatever we're measuring, if we're doing load monitoring, it's not just about load. We have to measure the response to that load. And then we decide, are you responding well to the load? If yes, then you can load again. If not, then you're going to have to adjust the program. And that might mean extra warm-up, extra activation. It could mean extra recovery or it could mean decreasing the load when you go back and load again.
Sorry.
Yeah, you go.
Let me translate a little bit. Lo que habla básicamente es si, no me acuerdo si traduje la pregunta o no. Sí, la traduje. Él dice que vamos a tener algunas cargas, vamos a tener que medir la carga externa, algunas medidas de carga externa y de carga interna. Pero muchas veces también podemos utilizar escalas subjetivas, por ejemplo el dolor en el caso de una tendinopatía, que nosotros la carga que le metamos a ese tendón no vamos a saber cómo responde hasta, por ejemplo, 24 o 48 horas después. Entonces, si nosotros no utilizamos una carga, una escala subjetiva para saber cómo responde esa carga, no lo vamos a saber. Con lo cual, la monitorización de la carga no es solo saber cuánta carga realizó, sino cómo responde a esa carga. Go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
Now, this is all good in theory, but this is an example that's happened really recently to us. Is what happens if you're with a sport that is not a traditional sport? So is it a running-based sport, but it's an artistic sport? Maybe it's dancing, or maybe it's gymnastics, and maybe you come from a place that from a sport or a country that can't afford expensive tracking technology, so you can't afford to put inertial sensors on your athletes. The whole concept of having to measure external load there, there's two answers. You either say, well, I need to buy all of this expensive equipment, or I can't monitor my load the way the textbook says. So I have to find an alternative, and the alternative has to be session RPE. It's the only way that we've got. And yes, it's an internal measure of load, but it's the only measure we've got that will allow us to quantify load when in the absence of external load. And we've got to be realistic that in most clinics and in a lot of sports, water polo, for example, we can't put sensors on the majority of our athletes. So it's just not possible to do it. So some of these models are great in theory, but when you actually go out into practice, you've got to find a way to still load your athletes as sensibly as possible with the technology that you've got or the limited resources you've got. But you're still looking at load, and then you're looking at response to the load before you decide whether you're going to load again.
Perfect, perfect. Lo que habla es que muchas veces estamos en un deporte no tradicional, como, no sé, como que no sea correr, fútbol, lo que sea, sino puede llegar a ser danza, y no se puede costear un equipo de GPS. Entonces, lo que nos queda es el esfuerzo percibido de la sesión, que es una carga interna, pero que es lo que hoy por hoy tiene la mayor evidencia de manejo de carga, ¿sí? Entonces hay algunos deportes en los cuales el GPS no se puede utilizar, por ejemplo el waterpolo o cualquier deporte que sea en el agua y demás. Entonces, bueno, para esos deportes el Session RPE, el esfuerzo percibido de la sesión, es lo indicado. So, I'm going to ask you something that a colleague of us, Andres Romaniuk, I know he will ask you because he always asks everybody the same. And that's sometimes it's really hard for us to get the athletes complete all the information that we need to monitor load. No, I mean, so you have to tell him to write down or complete a form, an online form that says how long was the activity and what's the RPE. Sometimes they don't do that. I don't know why, but they don't do that. It's 10 seconds, but they don't do that. How do you think we can increase the compliance on filling this? Le pregunto, Andrés Romaniuk anda preguntando por todos lados, se ve que está medio desesperado, sobre cómo podemos hacer. Hay veces que no podemos hacer que el deportista complete el Session RPE. El Session RPE es la cantidad de minutos y el RPE. Entonces, muchas veces nos pasa, a mí también me pasa, no te preocupes, Andrés, que nos cuesta mucho que lo completen. Entonces le pregunto cómo podemos hacer para mejorar la adhesión de los deportistas a completarlo.
Well, I think just putting a form, and we've made the same mistake as well, trying to make it compulsory. We've introduced fines, the carrot or the stick approach. That doesn't work. Firstly, I think you've got to have a relationship with your athletes. They've got to realise that that you're there doing the best job you can for them, and they have to believe that this information is going to help their performance and help them competing at a high level. Now, if they don't believe that, then you're probably better off just leaving it, because if you're going to get garbage data, it's not worth it. Essentially, what you need is for them to tell you that it's important. You need them to tell you what's important to their performance. What are the things that are going to help them get to the gold medal or to the championship? And if appropriate loading is part of that, and good training is a part of that, then there's your in to get compliance. If it's not important to them, though, then I wouldn't even bother trying.
Perfecto. Lo que dice es que muchas veces ellos han intentado un montón de cosas, como por ejemplo, no sé, ponerle una multa o un castigo cuando no lo completan y demás, y se dieron cuenta de que no tiene buenos resultados, que no sirve. Lo primero que tenemos que hacer es explicarles por qué lo hacemos, y que lo que hacemos es para que ellos mejoren y que les va a servir para mejorar, y que de última, si no lo hacen, que no lo hagan. La otra opción de encarar esta propuesta es sentarnos con el deportista y preguntarle a ellos, bueno, vos, ¿qué pensás que es lo que va a hacer que vos puedas mejorar tu rendimiento, que puedas llegar a alcanzar esa medalla olímpica o que puedas lograr tus objetivos? Y si para ellos la carga o el tener una carga buena y controlada no es uno de sus factores principales, bueno, nunca te va a completar eso. So when this happened, that I mean, sometimes I find myself in a situation that I keep monitoring load in a tennis player, and sometimes I don't know. He had a bad week, and he doesn't feel all the things I need. But I I keep uh, monitoring the load for all the year. That week that I don't have the information, what should I do then? Should I start from the week after or le
Uh,
pregunto, hay muchas veces que pasa que venimos manejando la carga durante todo el año y de repente hay una semana donde quizá, no sé, tuvo una mala semana y no completó porque, no sé, porque se le cantó no completar. Y si no pongo nada ahí, pierdo todo el trabajo que vengo acumulando. Entonces le pregunto qué hago en ese caso.
so you're saying that he has been training, but he just hasn't been feeling great, and he hasn't filled out the data.
Yeah,
Yeah. Look, I think in that case, there are ways you can deal with missing data, and a lot of it is there's depending on where you read, you can have statistically, like you can input data, and or you could look at a previous similar session. You could average previous sessions, and you can put those in as, okay, well, he normally averages between 4 and 6 for this particular session. That's his session RPE. So we can, you would have to estimate it if you wanted to put the data in. I think you'd be far better off estimating it than saying that there was a zero there, because the zero is going to be further away from what you could estimate, because he actually has done something. And it's just one of those things. You get missing data all the time, and if you were working with multiple athletes, you might take a positional average, or you might take an average of that particular player for that particular session over the last 3 weeks, something like that. So you can get around it, and you just acknowledge that it's a limitation of missing data.
perfect, perfect. Lo que habla es que una de las formas es que de manera estadística podés ingresar los datos según algunas fórmulas que él, o sea, no es que él lo hace de esa forma. Y la forma más fácil es fijarnos en las semanas anteriores, si más o menos tuvo un entrenamiento similar, cuál es el promedio de carga que fue manejando y bueno, completarlo con eso, que es mucho mejor tener un dato promedio de lo que viene haciendo, eh, que va a estar más cercano a la realidad que colocar todos ceros y hacer como que no entrenó. So one question from the audience that get here this week was, we know from reading several papers that we should ask the athlete for the RPE 30 minutes after they finish the training session. Is that always like that? Because it's hard enough for us to seeing you drinking matcha is amazing.
I just need a few people to share it with.
Yeah. So it has to be that way. It has to be 30 minutes after. Le pregunto.
No, well, look,
yeah, no, go ahead.
You get to it. Look, I think the original papers recommended 30 minutes, but you and I both know that once the athlete leaves the facility, the last thing he's thinking about is filling out RPE. He's clocked off. So there are some studies that have looked at, well, what's the shortest time frame that we could use, and there's a study that's shown that RPE stabilizes around 10 minutes post. So 10 minutes might be an option for you. Even 10 minutes might be too long if you're in the clinic. You might, you might have to kind of pick and stick. You might, if you decide to go, well, I want it straight after the session, then you just try and do that consistently, knowing that it'll probably be a slightly higher RPE. But if you're consistent with that athlete, and you consistently use immediately post session, then you kind of that's probably the best option that you've got. But yeah, I don't think waiting 30 minutes post session is the ideal model for most athletes.
Yeah, me neither. Le preguntaba que en general, de forma estricta, lo que se habla es que el RPE, que se le pregunta el nivel de intensidad de la sesión, el nivel de intensidad percibido, autopercibido de la sesión de entrenamiento que tuvo, se tiene que tomar 30 minutos posterior al finalizar la sesión de entrenamiento, y que muchas veces eso ya bastante difícil es que lo completen apenas termina. Si encima tenemos que esperar 30 minutos para completarlo, es más difícil todavía. Entonces dice que hay algunos estudios que marcan que el RPE se estabiliza a los 10 minutos. Básicamente esto se intenta, lo que él habla que se estabiliza es que si vos le preguntas apenas termina, va a estar sobreestimado ese valor porque está muy cansado, y al estar muy cansado vas a decir siempre un par de números más. Entonces como que se estabiliza a los 10 minutos. Igual lo que él dice es que si vos consistentemente tomás siempre los datos en por ejemplo, apenas termina, podés tomarlo apenas termina, pero tiene que ser consistente, porque vos lo que haces es tomás la relación entre lo que estás haciendo ahora con lo que vos venís haciendo, con lo cual si siempre sos consistente en la toma de datos, es lo mejor. So I was telling the guys, correct me if I'm wrong, that the most important thing about getting data in load monitoring is like being consistent in the collection of the data, because if you sometimes you ask for the RPE 30 minutes, then you ask for the RPE just when he finishes, and then he asks for the RPE I don't know, the day after. So yeah. This data, it's all confused. So I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, that's right. And you know yourself, if you finish a hard run and I asked you how hard that run was immediately post,
10,
you'd say that was really hard. but after you've had time to cool down and you've had something to eat, or even the next day, you go, yeah, no, I've had harder runs than that. It wasn't that hard, and
yeah.
Your perception changes.
You forget.
So, yeah. So, and what we tend to remember is the last thing we did. So if you finish an hour run with hill efforts, then you'll probably rate it a lot higher because those hill efforts were pretty tough. But if you finished an hour run with a nice little kind of cool down walk, maybe your perception changes.
Yeah. You know, every time I finish a race, I tell myself that I won't do that again. And the day after, I'm signing up for the next race. So, lo que él dice es que... What?
Sorry, you go. Oh, it sounds like my wife with childbirth. During childbirth, never again. This is the last. And then, like, as soon as the baby's in her arms, like a minute later, oh, maybe next time we could do it this way. And I'm going, no, there's no next time.
Lo que él dice, ante el último comentario que yo les contaba de que hay que ser consistentes con la toma de datos, él dice que si vos le preguntás a alguien apenas termina una actividad, te va a decir un valor. Si esa actividad la terminó y después caminó un poquito y demás, te va a decir otro valor. Yo le decía que, por ejemplo, cuando yo termino una carrera, digo, no lo voy a hacer nunca más, y al día siguiente me inscribo otra vez a una carrera, y él pone otro ejemplo con la mujer que dice que le pasa lo mismo con los partos, que el día del parto le dice, esto no lo hacemos nunca más, y cuando le dan el bebé en brazos, dice, bueno, puede ser, una vez más puede ser. So, uh, let's find some questions from the audience. Uh, there's a question here that says, is there a way to monitor? I don't know if I can do it. Yeah. Is there a way to monitor the load of an specific joint or muscle or region of the body? Le pregunto si, bueno, está ahí la pregunta, pero si hay alguna forma de monitorizar la carga en una región específica del cuerpo. Muy buena la pregunta.
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that everywhere I go, I ask the group: is an RPE, is it sensitive enough to pick up local tissue loading or tissue specific loading? And some people say yes, some people say no. I think an RPE on its own probably won't, but you'd need to change the question slightly. So rather than saying how hard was that session today, you would need to say, how hard was that session on your calf or on your hamstring? Now, again, it's still only local tissue loading. So if you took an RPE of 5 for an hour session, that's 300 units. Now, if you're doing a whole heap of calf raises in day 1 or day 2 of rehab, and you said it was a hard session for an hour, that doesn't necessarily mean that you could go out and do a hard, high-speed running session for an hour. So local tissue loading and sport-specific loading, they're not necessarily the same thing. So, this is probably another example of why it's important for physios to monitor load, and why it's important for strength and conditioning coaches to monitor load, and then to try and join it up, to try and at least have the conversation of, what are you planning to do up here? And what has he done down here? Can we bridge the gap between the two? That's where I see the loading being most powerful, is to actually have a conversation so you can work together for the athlete.
Perfect. Lo que dice es que hay algunos que dicen que sí se puede monitorizar la carga de una región específica y otros que dicen que no. Pero los que dicen que sí, básicamente lo que debes hacer es cambiar la pregunta. O sea, si vos le decís, ¿cuál fue el esfuerzo que vos percibiste en no sé, el tríceps ural? Entonces vos ahí tenés una medida de carga local del tejido. Pero no deja de ser una medida de carga local de ese tejido. Entonces, si vos, por ejemplo, tuviste 300 unidades de carga de ese tejido porque hiciste, no sé, un entrenamiento excéntrico de tríceps ural, no quiere decir que después puedas hacer la misma carga de entrenamiento, pero un entrenamiento de pasadas, por ejemplo. Entonces, como que hay que tomarlo diferente y no se pueden mezclar. Okay, let's see if we have another question. Okay, here's one. I don't see the entire. What should we do now after quarantine? Because many athletes are not training. So what happened now? What should we do?
Well,
Dice, ¿qué tenemos que hacer ahora post cuarentena? Hay muchos atletas que no están entrenando, ¿y cómo hacemos?
In some ways, it's very similar to an off-season break. It's just a little bit longer than normal. The challenge that we've got at the moment is, generally we need 3 things to start a program. We need to know a starting point, we need to know an end point, and we need to know how much time we've got to get from point A to point B. Now, the issue that we've got at the moment is we're missing a part of the information that we need. We're missing time. So we don't, if we were to compare it to a race, we don't know when the gun's going to go off, and we don't know how long the race is going to be. So we're preparing for a race that almost doesn't have a finish line at the moment. So the best thing I can suggest at the moment is just try and keep some physical load ticking over if you can. Now, you don't have to be up around 100% where you normally are, but just try and keep yourself physically active, knowing that you're not going to have the perfect conditions. The other thing I'd keep in mind is now more than ever, it's important to coach your athlete, not the number. Now, what I mean by that is different people are going to respond differently to this lockdown. Some people will love it because they can do whatever they like. They don't need people around them. Others are going to be feeling really anxious. Have I done enough training? When am I going to get out and get my life back to normal? Whatever it is. So it's really important that take care of your athletes first. Just make sure that they're okay, because mentally some will be handling it better than others. If you make sure they're happy, that's probably your starting point. If you're trying to train someone who's unhappy or anxious, then straight away you're pushing a rock uphill. So if you can get them happy and get them comfortable with the fact that it's going to be okay, they'll get through it. And this is just one of these things that it's not going to last forever. It'll pass. So and then once we have some timelines in place of when things are we're going to be free of this lockdown, then we've got a better idea of how to plan. At the moment, it's very hard to plan when you don't have a timeline. That's the challenging part. And if you're focusing on the textbook, then if you can only work within the rules of a textbook, then there's going to be a problem at the moment, because if you go to the chapter on COVID, there's nothing there. So you're going to have to use solid principles of training, and you're going to have to understand your individual athletes as best as you can.
Perfect. Bueno, lo que él dice es que básicamente para saber qué hacer cuando salgamos de la cuarentena, necesitamos tres cosas. ¿Dónde estamos? ¿Dónde arrancamos? ¿Cuál es el objetivo que nosotros tenemos? ¿Y cuánto tiempo tenemos? Y básicamente nos falta una de esas tres cosas, que es el tiempo. Nos estamos preparando, él dice, para una carrera que no sabemos cuál es la llegada. Entonces, el consejo que él da es tratar de mantenerse lo más activo posible dentro de sus posibilidades, y centra su objetivo en entrenar al deportista y no al número. O sea, no quedarnos con lo que dice la evidencia, porque la evidencia no habla nada del COVID-19, sino que cada atleta va a responder diferente, se va a adaptar diferente, va a tener diferentes ansiedades, ganas, etcétera. Y acá lo más importante es cómo responde psicológicamente también cada uno. Hay algunos que van a estar felices, otros que van a estar tristes. Entonces, el consejo básicamente es que hay que ver cómo le pega a cada uno. So, Tim, I don't know, how is it down there in Australia? Are you locked down? Can you go to the streets, or because I saw you pushing a truck the other day, so I don't know if if you're allowed to, or should I call the police?
Well, in theory, I probably shouldn't be pushing that truck. In theory, not up and down not up and down my street. I could probably go to a car park and do it, but we are kind of locked down. We're in like social distancing, so we're allowed to. We could go out in pairs, for example, and go for a walk. We can do exercise. We can go to a park as long as we're adhering to social distancing rules. But there's a lot of businesses are shut down at the moment. So bars and restaurants are all shut down. And yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of places that are doing it tough. But then you don't have to look too far to different countries or different places, and there's people doing it tougher than us. So I think we're all just doing our best to keep our heads straight, because it's a different way of operating. But I also think it's a good opportunity to work on some things that if you're a business that relies on face-to-face stuff, then maybe it's a good way to think of new ways. It makes you think, oh well, how am I going to adapt to this challenge? But equally, I'm encouraging my coaches to have a look at where they think their coaching is limited. Where they think they can improve, and is there some things that you can do in this period to get better? So and even myself, I'm looking at things where I go, okay, well, here's an opportunity to get better at a particular area, whatever that is. So try and look at it as an opportunity rather than a catastrophe. We'll get through it. It's just like anything else. We'll get through it.
Le pregunto un poco cómo están las cosas allá en Australia con respecto a la cuarentena, si es total o no, porque el otro día subió una historia empujando un camión por la calle. Entonces me dice que hay un distanciamiento social, que no hay una cuarentena total, sino que pueden ir al parque a correr, a hacer ejercicio, siempre y cuando se mantenga un distanciamiento, pero que hay ciertos locales que están cerrados, como los bares, restaurantes y demás. Que la charla que él tiene con los entrenadores con los que él trabaja es que intentar sacar algo positivo de este momento, y es que puedan trabajar sobre sus debilidades. O sea, en cómo puedo mejorar. Mismo él también dice que está trabajando en cosas que dice, bueno, ¿qué puedo hacer yo? ¿Qué puedo mejorar para después ser un profesional más completo? Okay, Tim, we are getting to the finish line, so I cannot thank you enough for this moment with us. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. So thank you again. I
My
will
pleasure.
see
Anytime.
you. I will see you on Wednesday night at the webinar.
Yes.
Here Wednesday night. For you is Thursday morning, no?
Thursday morning. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. It would be terrible if I didn't turn up to that one. I'll be there too. I'll be ready to go.
Perfect. And I hope to see you next year, 2021, here at Buenos Aires.
Yeah, it'll be great to catch up again. I'll be building my sugar load in advance, just so I don't overdose on all those flans and different pastries. The pancetta.
Panqueque.
Oh yeah, pancake. Yeah.
Perfect.
It takes me a while to recover from those trips,
Yeah, I can imagine.
I have a sugar hangover.
Yeah, I'll ask Polo to use a spoon next time. So, Tim, thank you. Have a nice day, and say hi to your family.
Yeah, same to you. All the best. Good to talk to you, Mendo.
Be safe.
Okay, bye-bye.